Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast discussing meditation, the near-death experience, spiritually inspirational and transformative experiences. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers, author and teacher. I wanted to remind you that if you want to do free one-on-one coaching for meditation, just set up an appointment in Calendly and I will meet with you. We can help you get a meditation program going. But now we're going to talk to a guest that I brought on. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Nid. I originally am from the UK. I was a dance teacher and then a lawyer in the UK for many years until I had fallen down some stairs and had a head injury. And what I was told by the neurologist that was the best thing that was going to help me was to do some meditation. And so that was, I'd done bits of meditation before that, but I'd never really understood like the depths of the benefits of meditation until the neurologist had said to me, that's what you should do to help rewire your brain. And so I went off and I started doing what many of us do, which is using YouTube to try out different practices and explore what would help me. I, in fact, went on a specialized 5-day brainwave therapy treatment where I experienced different parts of the brain being activated through different meditation styles. So that really gave me some good insight apart from to my healing journey, also what parts of the brain are really activated when we work with different types of meditation technique. And then from there, obviously, as I started getting more healthy and I recovered, I was training to start to share meditation for other people. So for me, it was very functional coming to meditation, which I think for some people, it can be a very functional experience. How can I just up level my skills? How can I focus better? Or, how can I remember things better? So it can be that really basic cognitive function. And that was definitely really fundamental for me, but also really huge was emotional regulation. One of the common things that happens with a brain injury is we have no emotional regulation. And so learning to identify my emotions, learning to then recognize what was going on beneath my own thoughts was a key part of it. So there was a multi-layered, actually many-year stage process in those early days of connecting with meditation and why I would do it, how it could change my life. And I made a promise to myself that as I recovered, I would share things that I discovered with other people who might benefit. And so that led me that once I would certify in leading a certain type of meditation, I would then start offering that out on YouTube. And that built a business for me over those years of healing. And there are so many instances, obviously, in that journey of how meditation opened my mind to see things within myself. Things, not only just seeing emotions and understanding those emotions, but also just the simplicity of seeing how my physical experience could be altered by the choice in my mind to say, I choose to change. So, just by being in a practice, witnessing and observing the physical state I could be in. So one of the side effects I had was an inability to regulate my body temperature. And so often that felt really uncomfortable. And so just being able to choose in my mind to say, okay, I'm feeling really hot, I'm going to feel cool now. And just allowing that coolness to move through my body was something that I realized the power of my mind in being able to shift my state, both physically and emotionally. Not always successfully. Sometimes I needed to have a lot more willpower, a lot more focus than at other times. So it had a really beautiful functional element to learning meditation in those early days. And I really didn't come to it thinking it was going to be about opening up psychic gifts, changing my life particularly. I was really looking for the healing, for getting better, for recovery. I struggled to read. I wasn't remembering. I was falling asleep in conversations, things like that. So it was really important to have that basic level of function to kind of be able to participate with other people. And over the years, I discovered Yoga Nidra, which was so powerful. And obviously, one of the things that you start to do when you're really sick is I was told one of the best things I could do was to track my sickness, how sick I was, how I felt, what all the symptoms were from a scale of 0 to 10. And with that, I would journal what happened in each meditation practice or Yoga Nidra practice, what messages came through, what was happening, right? So you start to, when we start to track things, it's quite interesting what happens. And maybe at the time you don't stop and look at what's in the journal. You don't, pay that much attention to all the things you're noting down. And I would note down some guidance around, say, learn about the I Ching, right? And so I would sometimes go off and start learning about something, or there'd be lots of messages around learning to rest more, learnings about self-care, connecting with nurturing, all things that at the time I was like, I don't want to do that, but I was really sick and I had to learn to sit still and rest. And in those meditations, I was often showing things like, thinking is really unhelpful. It's making you really emotionally exhausted. And it would show me how pain was really connected to my thoughts and then my emotions, and then my physical body would experience it. And so I started really clearly seeing in meditation practices how my thoughts were really affecting my own state, as well as how I was choosing to exist and live in my life. But also it would give me guidance that I sometimes didn't really understand, or I wasn't really listening to. And one of the great things about journaling over those years of recovery was that when I finally was ready to leave the UK and I was well enough to be able to travel, I left, with only the intention I was just going to follow the sun until I knew where I was supposed to go next. So very trusting, very scared, but also very trusting. Again, meditation showing me, trust, like just do this, just go with it, just trust that it will work out. And I noticed in my dreams and in my meditations, I was seeing this man who I would see again and again and again. And I gave him a name, as you tend to when someone keeps visiting. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe he's a spirit guide. Maybe he's someone I'm being guided by, he's one of my many guides. But it never quite fitted for me that he was a guide. And then as I began traveling, it became very clear to me in my meditations that this was a man that I was going to meet in real life. And that I'd known him in many past lives, and that we were very deeply connected. And eventually I had a meditation where I was shown I was going to meet him 6 months' time in Greece, and where I was going to meet him in amongst the trees inland. And it turned out that I was offered some work in Greece, and I went to Greece. And so while I was there, I didn't think very much of this man. I could feel this energy of like getting ready to meet someone, but I didn't know what it was. And again, the meditations were still there. It was still present. This man that I'd given this name was showing up in all my meditations of, he's coming, be ready, kind of like, and it wasn't a get ready to meet someone, romantically. It was a spiritual, get ready for the spiritual shift that comes with this meeting. And it was always, and I think that's why I felt like he was a guide, because it was always a spiritual, deep spiritual connection that came through, and that I had to spiritually be ready for this person. And so I would get up at 4 a.m, doing hours of practice, really diving deep in, hours of meditation and movement practice, really, just somatically being present, processing what needed to process. And that feeling was getting stronger and stronger about this man, but I was about to leave Greece. I only had 2 weeks left. And again, the meditations just kept showing me, he's coming. And just that this energy was so strong. It was so potent in my meditations that this man was coming. And then one night I was going to my boss's birthday party, and we were going up inland from where I was working, which was a resort down on the waterfront. And I sat down at the dinner table, and this man sat down a few seats down from me, and he looked forward and caught my eye, and we smiled. And I was in the midst of, work stuff and just not really thinking too much. And I was just like, oh, I'm sure he's just, married or whatever. And I got up mid-meal to go and take my plate back to the kitchen. which is what we did in that venue. And he stopped me on the stairs. And I looked into his eyes and I knew he was the man that I'd been seeing in all my meditations. I'd seen in all of my dreams. Like, he had been coming to me through these practices. And when I looked back in my journal, I had been writing about him for 2 years before I met him. So 2 years of meditation had this man coming to me, and me understanding and receiving these messages of preparation to meet this person. And I knew his eyes, his face was different, his body was different. What I'd been shown was him in past lives. His name was different from the one that I'd given him, but that he was my twin flame to meet. And so when I met him, I knew who this person was, and it was very easy for me to be really comfortable with him, because I knew and I could trust what I'd been shown in all of those visions and all of my meditations as to who this person was and how I was to interact with him. And I could still receive guidance in my meditations. And so that was a scenario where my meditation had built up, and shown me guidance of how I needed to prepare myself for things that were going to happen in my life. And that, I feel, is a really important part of a meditation practice, is that there's often many steps of how we're being guided, but we don't necessarily know, and we don't want to attach to the outcome of the meditation practice and where it's taking us to. You know, I wasn't attached to, I'm meeting a partner, I'm meeting someone important. I just knew this person was important spiritually in my life, that he was going to really help me access and open my heart, and that soul growth, very importantly. And that was a really beautiful, long journey for me in getting to know him and seeing the way in which I'd followed the guidance very gently that had been through each meditation. And I had connected and felt that energy that the meditations were showing me. So I find that a really beautiful example of how meditation can be quite subtle in what it's taking us towards when we really surrender to meditation and allow it to come through. And one of the styles of meditation that I had been taught was, rather than going into a focus practice, which was most of the practices I learned when I first had my accident, because I needed to learn to refocus my mind and rewire those neural networks. And so it's very important to have very specific practices to help with that attention deficit and be able to really focus and stay on one track. Was not open monitoring as in how we do mindfulness meditation, where you just sit and monitor your thoughts and your feelings, but you just sit quietly and you ask to be shown what is in your highest good and what is to benefit all people. And that's the only thing that I would do before I would start a meditation. And this practice opened up a lot of the really bigger parts of my own healing in that journey towards meeting this partner. So it was when I would sit, and at this time I was working a lot on retreats, so I had the time to do this. And as I said, I was getting up very early in the morning, doing hours of practice before I'd be with people. And I would go into that meditation just asking to be shown what is there that is in the highest good. And I had smoked from the age of 11 years old. I'd had lots of mental health issues as a child. I'd been very unstable. And I had also gotten very sick from smoking. So I used to get regular bronchitis. Most of, the UK winter, I would be sick with bronchitis. And I showed no interest in giving up smoking. I loved smoking. I loved the smell of it. I loved the touching. I loved the social life element of smoking. Like it was just, I really loved smoking. And I'd smoked through all of my life up until my head injury. And when I had the early stages of my head injury, I stopped smoking because I was too sick to even remember I wanted a cigarette. But about 6 months into my recovery, I started smoking again. And it wasn't very much, I would just have a couple of cigarettes, and then over time it would build. And so that relationship with smoking had never changed. And as I'd gone deeper into my practice with meditation, I had no interest, no intention to give up smoking. And I think this is one of the really beautiful things that can happen when we surrender to just what's in my highest good without setting an intention of, I'm going in to master this. Because sometimes when we head into that, I'm going in to master it, it almost blocks the capacity for something really transformational to happen. And so by allowing myself just to say, what is there that's in my highest good? And I just sat there one day and I was just present. I could feel lots of energy moving, and lots of energy started moving around my heart. And I personally feel, and then it turns into a visual from feeling. And so I was feeling the energy around my heart and my throat. And as the energy started to spiral down into my chest, it started to show me this hell energy. And this energy was the way in which I hated myself and how I was attacking myself every time I had a cigarette. And it showed me the depth of hatred that I had towards my own self, which was why I would smoke. And it was so upsetting as I was in the meditation, but I was so deeply in the meditation, like I hadn't taken psychedelics. And when I did this meditation, so it was like a psychedelic experience, but without doing them. And it was very physical as well as very visual, and it was very deep. And I would not have been able to take myself out of that meditation if you'd have asked me to, because I was so deeply seeing this own internal hell I had of my own self-hate. And it just stayed with me in my lungs, seeing all of this smoky hatred that I had pervaded through my breath. And breath being our tool of life. You know, that is what brings us to life. It's what gives us vitality. And how I was suppressing and suffocating my life through my hatred of living. And that was part of my depression from my mental health issues as a child. And when it was finished with showing me that hatred, I came out and I could never touch a cigarette again, because the level of feeling that I had experienced meant that there was nothing inside of me that could do that to myself. And for months, I would get that waft, you know, that sense of like, oh, it'd be nice to have a cigarette, or I'd smell someone having a cigarette and I'd be like, oh, that smells nice. And it was this beautiful sign to me of, hang on a minute, you're not loving yourself enough. Like, where can I turn this around and give myself more love? And I haven't touched a cigarette, obviously, since that meditation. And it became a really beautiful guiding tool of, if I ever do smell cigarettes and I'm like, that smells lovely, I know that there's something within me that is, you know, maybe not in the highest good of my own self. Maybe I'm being a bit judging, a bit harsh on myself in some way. And I was able to transfer that over to other things in my life, like eating too many sweets, eating too much chocolate, and to recognize that same feeling in my body, how it might not be in my lungs because it wouldn't be smoking, but I could feel in my body that sense of rejection and how I was rejecting myself and embracing newer habits. And so meditation has also got that possibility, right? When we just open to what is in our highest good. You know, so sometimes, and I see this with my clients, you know, we block ourselves when we're trying to fix something. And it's actually when we just say, okay, I don't know best. I surrender to not knowing what it is that I need, that the meditation can really take you where you need to go. And it can drop you into that place, but you need to be held in a place where you feel safe, where you feel supported. And that's often why we need someone to guide us. Because unless you've done a lot of that yourself, you often need someone there to help support you and to help you feel safe so that you can go to that place and that depth, and also how to integrate what it is that you've been shown, because it's not always easy to be shown these negative places within ourselves, and to be able to still also hold yourself simultaneously in that love and acceptance of what you've been shown and how you can move forwards from there. So I think it's really important to have someone there to support you and to guide you through these processes if you can, but also they can happen spontaneously when you're ready, and that does happen to people, but the key is to then get support for the integration process afterwards if you're not sure how to manage that.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
So those are like, for me, those were sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you do the highest good meditation, is that part of Yoga Nidra, or is that a different type of meditation?
I just do that as its own. So that's all it is. It's not, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not trying to monitor my thoughts. I'm not trying to focus. I just sit and I just ask, please show me my highest good and for the good of all beings. And that is it. That's the whole practice. It's that straightforward. And that one I find really opens up. But what I found was that by doing the Yoga Nidras, you're guided in a Yoga Nidra, you're guided through a journey, right? So you're guided through feeling opposite sensations, experiencing opposite emotions. You're guided through symbolism and archetypes that may bring up beliefs and thought processes and memories that are there for you to heal. And so it gives a really solid foundation for a very whole brain healing approach. And that was what I learned when I did the brainwave therapy, was that Yoga Nidra was accessing and working through all of those different parts of the brain that I saw when I was working with brainwave therapy. Because we're working somatically, right? We're working with thoughts, and we're working with the subconscious through the archetypal imagery. And so it gives a really solid foundation to then do the second practice, which is that I'm now open to my highest good, because you're more used to seeing things that might come up that might feel a bit distressing, right? When we do the journey in a Yoga Nidra, it can give that foundation and safety for someone. They can learn to process a bit in a Yoga Nidra, and then they're more open maybe to what can happen magically when you just ask for your highest good.
Well, Yoga Nidra is like a super relaxation type of meditation where you lie down.
Yeah, that's right. So the key with a Yoga Nidra, which I think a lot of people just associate it with sleep, but the power behind Yoga Nidra is because you're so relaxed. It's doing that same, in a way, it's working similarly to the opening to your highest good. You're opening up all the parts of your mind. So Yoga Nidra will take you through visual, emotional, body somatic, right? So taking you through the parts of the brain. And in doing so, you're opening up all of those subconscious parts of the brain to work out, like I often describe it as the defragging that we used to have on old Windows computers. It's like it's reorganizing the way in which you've taken information, made protective behaviors, you've done all of your kind of coping strategies, and it helps you defrag and work out, I don't need that anymore. Oh, I used to believe that I needed that, but I don't need that. And so it allows a natural weaving to happen. Because a Yoga Nidra is guided, however, it's got things in it that are going to make suggestions to the subconscious for it to process through. So often I get a lot of feedback. So my Yoga Nidras are all free online, and I've done that for 8 years. And so those Yoga Nidras, I get many messages regularly from people who've said how the Yoga Nidras have changed their life because it's helped them resolve something. Because the Yoga Nidras are around a theme. So, when I channel a Yoga Nidra, they'll come through with a theme. Maybe it's inner child healing. Maybe it's learning to manage all the different types of waves of life, like going through the cycle of life and allowing things to be complete. And so it can allow for that healing that someone might be looking for. or to open up creativity, right, as well. It's not just healing. It could be you're feeling great and you're awesome and life is really, really good and you just want to up level in a yoga nidra. And so you want to access a bit more of your super conscious mind to be more creative artist or just have better problem solving skills at work. So you could do that through yoga nidra. It's because it's guided, it's not that open state. It doesn't just let whatever is in the highest good necessarily come through in the same way, but it can do. If it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen.
So like when you met your partner that you'd seen in your meditations, was he like aware of it? Like, yeah, that was me, or was he like,
No idea.
What was his feeling when you told him?
He was captivated by me, and he was definitely full on in, but it took 2 days for me to tell him that I'd been seeing him for years that he'd been coming to me. And he was so accepting. That's a pretty scary thing to say to someone, is like, I've been seeing visions of you for years, right? Like that's kind of putting yourself out there. He wasn't a meditator. He still isn't a meditator. He's a very down to earth sailing teacher. And so for him, it was just like, okay, you're awesome. And I was saying, and I've been dreaming of you and I've been meditating and you've been coming to me in visions. And he just kind of said, oh, okay, cool. Okay. And he just accepted it. There was no, and then he was kind of intrigued to be like, so how was I coming to you? Like, what's been the messages? So he was very accepting and open, which was again, very reassuring, but I wouldn't have said something if I hadn't have felt that strong guidance from my meditation that it was safe and it was the right thing to do to say something to him as well. So, it's that deep tuning in to the situation.
So it's kind of like your energies were connecting, but he didn't have awareness. So it wasn't like he was like consciously sending it out to you.
No, neither of us. And I think this is I think one of the key things in both of those stories is that neither of them were an intention to create something, right? Both of them were the universe allowing through what was really in the highest good, when we just like really allowed that openness and receptivity to life. Both of them were able to, overcome, I'd been divorced and all those, normal, not great relationship scenarios that we have. So, I was overcoming kind of not having great, healthy romance in my life. Like I'd never had a partner that would put me first. I didn't have that belief. And so, I was overcoming my own trauma of not allowing myself to be number one in someone's life. And this was my meditation showing me how to let myself be number one in someone's life, right? And really let that kind of a person in. And the same with the smoking, I was giving up an addiction, but I wasn't trying to. Like the universe was saying, you're ready to do so. And so there's a really great power in our meditation when we really surrender to what it can do, when we really open the mind can come through and transform your life. And it can be both gentle, right? Like the man, and it can also be really like in your face, full on, like it was when I gave up smoking. So, how it happens, can't predict, but I do think that the depth of what meditation can gift us when we really open ourselves and stop thinking that we lead the way. And it's one of the reasons why I actually teach a specific type of meditation, which is called a light body meditation. And that is activating certain energy centers, and we use the right brain to train. So it's not left brain meditation. And it really throws a lot of people because you have to very much surrender the mind, and the mind visualizing and doing the practice, and let the energy of the practice roll through you. And the clients that I have working with that practice, they make huge shifts in their life. And, it could be the first meditation, it can take a lot of them within the first meditation, there will be big wobbles because a power is activated within them where they start going, oh my God, what am I doing in my life? Like these things are really unhealthy for me. I need to make a shift. And then obviously what we do with the meditation is we're stabilizing people to move through those shifts and navigate the life changes with stability, which is really important, right? Because we don't just want to throw our whole life upside down mostly. Most of us like change in a nice, steady way if we can. And so it's really important, but it's really opening up that right side brain. I think as Jill Bolt Taylor talks about in her Stroke of Insight TED Talk, that when we really allow that right side of the brain to open up, like we can access something so much greater than our left side brain can vision for us. And that's the most easy way to transform and shift our way through our old traumas and our old addictive behaviors, because it's like it swipes under the subconscious. So it's a deeper layer where you don't really know what you're allowing, but it's beautiful what comes through.
Have you ever wanted to learn to meditate? Check out my book, Meditation for Everyone: How to Quickly Have a More Peaceful, Mindful, and Fulfilled Life, and support this channel. With Meditation for Everyone, you will learn to quickly and easily meditate, relieve stress and anxiety, alleviate depression, and have more joy, peace, and relaxation. What you will learn: mindfulness, the art of stillness, step by step on how to meditate, strategies for overcoming challenges to meditation, and much more. D. Mason said this is a nice meditation book, even for those already meditating. I agree with the statements that it will help to have a more peaceful, mindful, and fulfilled life. 4.6-star rating, available on Amazon. So like when you were studying all the different kinds of meditation and how it affected the brain, what types of meditation did you try? Did you try like transcendental meditation?
Yeah, so I tried transcendental meditation, and I really enjoyed it. It didn't have that transformative effect for me personally, so I didn't decide to pursue that for training. I trained in Yoga Nidra, and I trained in various mindfulness techniques, as well as so mindfulness kind of stress-based reduction work, as well as the traditional yoga meditations practices, as well as the pranayams. So and I did specific trainings yogically for those meditation practices too. And then I decided, and then what I noticed was it was the energetic. So I actually, in the very early days when I was doing the YouTube videos, found that doing Tai Chi meditation, where you learn to distribute energy through the body, was really impactful for me. So it was definitely working with energy in meditation, not just the mind. So understanding that we want to be looking at shifting energy when we meditate as a way in helped me embody and make those deeper shifts than just thinking about it as a mind-based practice. So the mind-based practice was really important when I was in those early stages of healing, and I needed like the cognitive function rebuild. But the energy-based practices were important in terms of understanding the emotional component and my nervous system when I was in meditation. So and light body is an energy-based meditation in particular. So, from the Tai Chi meditation practices, I found myself moving out into doing the light body work. So it's, and I always say this to people in terms of meditation practices, you have to find the way that you learn and the way that you're ready to process things, what level you're at. Some people might need more of the mindfulness focus for a while first, or someone might jump straight into doing more of the energetic type work. And some people love visualizations, and that's a place for them to drop into, but some people can't stand visualization. It's too much for them. So we have to kind of honor each of the way our brain is wired to help you access meditation. And then from there, then your journey can start to open out and expand. I wouldn't give a beginner my open, like, see what happens with the universe. Like, that would not be a beginner meditation. So generally, I tell people that as a beginner, the best thing to do is do Yoga Nidra, because you can lie down and relax, right? And it's accessing all those parts of the brain. And from there, you might notice that there's a certain part of the practice you like the most. And then that would be a place where you can go and start doing meditation of that part. So say you enjoy doing the affirmations in a Yoga Nidra, great, then go and look at doing something like transcendental meditation, where you can do repetition, and that might be your way into doing it as a specific meditation practice. But most of us don't mind lying down and listening to someone guide us, as we might drift off to fall asleep, which is why I always say just do Yoga Nidra, just to start to open your mind to meditation.
So, I mean, it sounds like when you were meditating, it wasn't like you were just doing a 10-minute thing every day. You literally said you were going in for hours sometimes.
Yeah, I could do, yeah. So, I mean, obviously I did do short 10-minute meditations, especially in the beginning, because I couldn't concentrate long enough. So when I first began, definitely 5-minute meditation, 10-minute meditation, and then building up. I mean, a large part when you're in a lot of pain is you're willing to do pretty much anything to try and work out how to get out of being in a lot of pain. And I had lots of migraine and neck pain from my head injury. So it was a large part, meditation was pain management for me in the early days as well, learning how to sit with pain and be present with it. And then also learning techniques to kind of exist while still in pain and kind of carry on with my life. So they were definitely shorter to begin with. As I said, like when I reached that point where I knew I was in a very, and in those early days, I wasn't looking for something spiritual, right? I just wanted to get better. I was injured. I just wanted my life back. I wanted to go back to being a lawyer. I wasn't really beginning, the neurologist said, do meditation. I was like, great. Like, what's the cognitive stuff I need to do to rebuild my brain? And that was what I was interested in. When I did the brainwave therapy, which was about 5 months after my accident, that really opened my mind up more so to what there was for me to access, what I needed to open myself to in terms of meditation. And so I started definitely diving a lot deeper into energy and how that could help me. But I did pretty quickly, I was doing the Tai Chi meditations 2 months after my accident, and they were only 5 to 10 minutes just to try and focus my mind. So those were earlier. It took a couple of years for me to be able to do a few hours of meditation. And I don't always do that much now, right? It's like now I'm back in the city. It's not so easy for me. I don't want to get up at 4 every morning to be doing my practices to that same extent. But at that time, I really needed those hours of meditation.
Well, so do you feel like you've fully healed? I mean, do you have any pain? Is your mind more intact now like it used to be, or?
Yeah, so last year was probably the first year I would say I didn't notice a marked improvement in some part of my function. One of the things that I was told by the neurologist was that the type of brain injury I had, you never know how ill you are or how damaged the brain is until you've got hindsight to see how much you've improved, which is quite a depressing prognosis, really, because that just means that it's like the injured limb can't tell itself how sick it is, which you can do if you've got a broken arm. You know how bad your broken arm is, but with a broken brain, you don't know how sick it is. And so it was always hard to know how much I'd improved. I'd think I'd improved loads, and then I'd realize that I hadn't. And overall, everything, the only things that aren't the same as they were before my accident are I don't have the same sharpness of memory, and I don't have the same spatial kind of recognition and memory that I used to have. I used to have really good sense of direction. But then with both of those two skills, they're two things I haven't stressed and put pressure on myself to improve after my brain injury. So I decided in the early days it was too stressful trying to have a good memory again, like I had as a lawyer. There was unnecessary to put myself under that much stress to remember details. And I, when I was dancing a lot, I had really good spatial awareness, and I hadn't been doing that kind of dance training since my accident. So both of those two are very specific skills, right, that we train in the brain. And I just hadn't put myself under that same retraining and to rewire my brain in that same way as prior to my accident. But other than that, everything else from brain injury is healed, plus many things from before the brain injury healed in that process. By setting an intention that I'm going to heal and be whole, and I'm going to serve what I learn to other people and share so that others can find their healing path. And it may not be the same. They might just want bits of what I do. It might help some other person. What I found is that it accessed healing like the smoking, right? I didn't think that was a part of my brain injury healing, but it was a part of my brain injury healing because I wasn't loving myself enough in terms of how I could heal and what I needed to do to make choices that would help me keep healing. And so it unlocked many things from childhood. My relationships with my family completely transformed during the process. So it wasn't just the brain injury that's healed, but actually it healed my life pre-brain injury too. So it healed the mental health component. It healed those old panic attacks. It healed the old depressive thoughts. Like all of that shifted through just choosing, I'm just healing. Like I'm healing my brain injury, but I'm also allowing healing that serves all of that.
Well, so
and
is,
it's
is the
wonderful.
physical pain gone pretty much?
Yeah. I don't get headaches. I haven't had headaches. I haven't had any migraines for about 4 years. I very rarely get a headache, and then it's normally, the normal kind of thing like dehydration or whatever, or you've slept wonky and your neck's tense. So it's pain-free. Energy levels are great. They're up there kind of with happy to do really long days, love doing lots of things. Body is healthy. Emotional regulation, it's great. That's really something to really enjoy. Definitely, because it was challenging not being able to emotionally regulate myself, and like seeing myself getting angry at people when I didn't want to be angry at people. So that's really beautiful to see. I now can co-regulate other people and I can be that calm place for others. So that's a huge transformation. I remember I can pay attention. I stay awake for more than half an hour. I can sleep through the night. I don't have insomnia anymore. I have temperature regulation. My body isn't all over the place as well. So, many things completely, better than they were before. And that's the key thing, I think, is it's not just I'm not back to where I was before. I'm better than I was when I was a lawyer, where I was probably I know I was quite stressed. And I also know that I was quite short and probably a bit of a bitch to people, which is why my marriage failed, right? I wasn't empathetic enough to my husband working my long days. And so my marriage suffered. And the same with my relationships with my family. I wasn't open-hearted and compassionate enough to their pain. And I had to go through my own healing and my own pain in order to be able to heal and see their own pain and have those better relationships. And that was my work to be done, and that's more than what I asked for by having healed from the brain injury. It's built a life much bigger and much better than I probably would have asked for if I'd have set my intention to get better from my brain injury. It would have been, go back to being a lawyer. But, the length and the duration of my struggle meant that I had to surrender to a better life than I was asking for. And the universe did that, 2 years to call in this amazing man who brought me to Australia, where I get to live now, in a lovely life that we have here with great friends. It's, and a business that thrives from helping people, right, through the things that helped me. And those are things that I never would have set as an intention, and that I feel very honored to receive and to contribute back and give back now that I have that health is a key part, obviously, of my own gratitude, I guess, for that journey, and to support other people and seeing that they can have that journey too.
So, you do like one-on-one teaching? Do you do classes and online courses? Do you do YouTube videos? What is like the extent of what you do in terms of helping people with meditation? And you mentioned like you do Yoga Nidra and you do the light body. What are the type of meditation you're teaching?
So, so on my YouTube channel, I will share a Yoga Nidra, and I put some of them on Insight Timer as well. And I also share short kind of mindfulness energy-based meditations on YouTube. I don't put those on Insight Timer. I have an app which has the full library of all of the Yoga Nidras that I've recorded for free. So on my app, people can go and access both the recorded ones, but also I do live. So like I do an equinox and solstice lives on Insight Timer. So I'll do one today. So I do those as well. And those recordings are available to people who come into the app. And then my clients, I channel meditations for them. Some of them will learn, it depends on what's appropriate. So if it's best for a client to learn like a yoga meditation, I'll give them a yoga meditation to do. If it's better for a client to learn a mantra meditation, then we might be doing that. If a mantra meditation might be like singing bija mantras. So in terms of privates, they're channeled particularly for a client, maybe from a lineage, maybe not. And then I run a light body course, which is 7 months long, which clients do online. And that's to give them a really solid container for the types of changes that will happen in their life, because it is quite significant what people go through when they do the light body training. So we do it as a 7-month process where they get the activations, then we have integration sessions and support, and I add in other practices that can help support them through that process. So that's the training piece, as it were, specifically as a course, and then the rest of them are available for free or bespoke for clients. So that's those are the ways in which I deliver meditation to my clients and to the public. A lot of that's free.
So what is one thing you'd like to leave with the audience before we close out, in terms of what you've learned?
I think the most important thing is to surrender in your meditation, and to allow your meditation to be a journey that's going to open you beyond what your wildest imagination could ask for. And to enter your meditation journey with curiosity and an open mind.
So how can people reach out to you?
So you can go to my website, which is nidsnidra.com. There's a quiz, so you can do the quiz and find which place is the best place for you to start out of the courses or the free meditations. You can download the Nids Nidra app and get the meditations there, or they can follow me on YouTube and access the recordings that go up on YouTube if they prefer. And if they don't like YouTube, Insight Timer as well. And everywhere I'm Nids Nidra. That's it. So NIDS NIDRA.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for being on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for your time and your great questions. I really appreciate it.